You're listening to the Live Free podcast. I'm your host, Christine, certified life coach, pain to power mentor, and creator of Embody You Mindset Mastery School. I'm here today to discuss living life after disease, disaster, or adversity, to discuss living life fully once again. A life of hope, peace, and resiliency. A life fully embodied. I utilized the lessons that I learned going through not one, but two primary cancers. I'm here today to guide you to the life of your dreams, turn your pain into power, and lead you back to yourself. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Live Free podcast. Today we have Krystle on the podcast. Krystle is a survivor and the absolute, complete and utter epitome of persevering, positive, strong, and powerful. You're going to love this episode with Krystle, so let's get to it. So welcome, Krystle. Krystle is a
Hello.
survivor. I'm so grateful to have you here. We're going to have a little bit of a conversation about your story and everything that happened with you. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's start first with who are you and where are you from and what is your story?
Okay. I grew up in a small francophone town called Bellevue, about 100 kilometers north of Saskatoon. Both my parents only spoke to us in French, so, grew up bilingual in Saskatchewan. Um, so after high school, I went and did an education degree in Regina, and then I did a special education degree, and then I did my master's during my first two maternity leaves. What else can I tell you? I started dating my husband at 20. We got married very young. I think I was 23. We have three children. They are now, my oldest is Emma, she's 10. My second is Ava, she's 8. And my youngest is Dax, and he is 5. I
Busy
teach
household.
pardon me?
Busy household.
Yes, very much. My husband is self-employed. He has a plumbing company since we moved away from Saskatoon. So the past 8 years, he keeps busy with that. I teach kindergarten since we moved to Dormy. I believe this is my 6th or 7th year in kindergarten. I teach in a little small rural francophone town, 120 students. When I got sick, I had 6 students in my class. This year I have 13. So, smaller group. Um, yeah, so that gives you a good idea, I think.
Of who you are.
Yeah.
Excellent. And so you love what you do, I assume.
I love what I do. I love reading. I love self-love. I love growth. I love learning something new every day. It's just who I am. I love sports, being active, very busy life. And that's how I liked
Hey,
it. I always have.
amazing. You're a seeker. I love seekers. People who are always seeking to grow and change and yes. And so how did it feel when you were diagnosed, when you're so busy?
Oh, that was quite the adjustment. As you can tell, I'm probably a very big, obvious type A person. So, unknowns and change. And it was, it was the hardest month of my life. The unknown and not having control over your life, what's happening to you was absolutely terrifying. It's very difficult. Um, I just think about it and, the feeling of wanting to throw up and that I'm sure you had the same thing, Christine, that feeling in your stomach that just lasted there for weeks. I can still picture it and feel it. Are you like
Yes.
that?
I do. I know it.
Yeah.
I know, I recall it. If I close my eyes and go back there, I recall it very well.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
So it's kind of hard to put
So what,
into words, but I can definitely still feel it.
yes.
Yes.
Yes. And so, okay, so give the listeners a little bit of an idea. How long has it been since you were diagnosed, and what were you diagnosed with?
Okay. So I was diagnosed last October with triple negative breast cancer. I was told I was stage 2B, meaning that my mass or the tumor in my breast was 2 centimeters, but there was also lymph node involvement. Um, just to give a little bit of context, my mom was diagnosed the year before me, and she had been declared cancer-free 2 weeks before my diagnosis. So, the cancer world was very familiar to me. I didn't, my sister and I had talked about being our best advocates and, later in life, making sure that we were doing all the screenings and everything. We were thinking more in our 50s or so, but boom, right there. It was me at 36. So, yeah.
And
Um,
it's terrifying because you had just witnessed what it was like to have a cancer patient in your house, and now you were the cancer patient. So that
yes,
must have been quite the like it's not even that you've been diagnosed, but that you know how hard it is.
absolutely. And I felt like I was still in it. I didn't even get the time to like catch my breath.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah,
truly. And
yeah,
for the listeners, triple negative breast cancer is a cancer that we don't know enough about.
no,
And so the problem with triple negative is that they just throw as much chemo as it that they can. They throw every drug at it that they can because they don't know what's causing it. Whereas with, for example, mine, which was a triple positive, we know it's estrogen progesterone based. So what we do is we diminish the estrogen and the progesterone. But for triple negative, there's not currently a story for that.
absolutely.
Um,
But in my case, so 80% of triple negative cases are usually hereditary. So back in that we found triple negative, my oncologist recommended genetic testing. My mom had been put on the provincial waiting list. So, we were kind of waiting for that because her mom passed away from ovarian in her 50s, and her mother had passed away of breast cancer in her 60s. So we knew there was a possibility there, but she hadn't gotten that call yet. So when I found out, I didn't want to wait. I didn't do the provincial. I went private and paid through Life Labs. I answered right away and I wanted to know if this was a genetic factor, and if not, I felt like I needed more. So I tested positive for one cancer gene, BRCA1, so BRCA1, and it kind of opened up this whole new can of worms for my family because my siblings, my mom's siblings, my cousins, everyone uh, was able to get tested afterwards. So I guess my diagnosis brought on a lot of awareness in our family.
right.
Yeah.
That would have been a scary time for a lot of your family to have found that out. And yeah, there was some big changes there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then that too,
Okay. And
the fear for your children.
of course, huge. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Huge fear.
So at 18, my three children are allowed to get tested if they choose. I mean, it's their decision, but my husband and I, we've talked about it a lot, and we would like to encourage them to find out, but at the end of the day, it's their decision when they turn 18. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And so
And then
what happened?
we also found out afterwards that if we would have known, there are ways now to stop the mutation from being passed on to your children.
I have heard that.
Yes, but we didn't know, so
And you didn't know. And
no.
and we're all just doing the best that we can with what we have. And I hope that you don't blame yourself in any
No,
way. Good. But
no,
I'm glad.
absolutely not. Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, because I know that was for myself, that was a question that someone asked me once. And it was a really difficult question to have someone ask me who was, as they call it in the cancer world, a pleb, a non-cancer person. And they were kind of like, so what are you going to do about kids? And I was kind of like, I was taken back because I was like, well, I mean, I should I not get that choice because of a gene that may potentially be present? I just kind of, it was quite an aggressive question, to be honest.
Yeah.
But the thing is that we're doing the best that we can with what we have. People are passing all kinds of things to
Mm-hmm.
their children because
Mm-hmm.
that's what genetics are,
Mm-hmm.
and so we can empower them to, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
to check their genetic and to follow all the right protocols and make sure that they exercise and eat well and all of those sorts of things. But I think it's unfair to not be able to have children because of something that was completely out of your control, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
And I do find comfort in knowing that those in my family who have tested positive since now at least have the awareness. They have the choice. They have
right.
options, and
Yeah,
I find comfort in that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yes. Excellent. Okay. Well, so in your story, you were taught, you said that you went through chemo. Did you do surgery, radiation? How long was your chemo?
So I did 6 months of chemotherapy and immunotherapy. So from November until April. So it was two types of chemo and an immunotherapy for the first 12 weeks, and then two different types of chemo, harsher ones, as I'm told, and immunotherapy for the last 3 months. And then in May, I opted for a double mastectomy because of this cancer gene, because we knew that there was a 40% chance that the cancer would also develop in my other breast. Yeah. So after that, I got a call that I had had a complete response in June. So two
Extraordinary.
weeks later. Yes. Oh, yeah. I don't think I've ever sobbed so hard in my life.
Yes. Yes. And
I remember
immunotherapy is
calling my
extraordinary.
husband and he's on his way to work and he thought it was bad news because I couldn't talk.
Yeah.
And he stopped the truck and he was going to turn around to come home. And I was like, no, no, like it's good, like, oh, anyway, I still, yeah, so many emotions.
Yes. What a beautiful moment. What a beautiful moment. And we don't know what 10 years ago, 15 years ago, but with these new therapies, people are getting news like this, and that is just such a beautiful moment for you to hold on to, and to remember when this doctor called you and said you've had a complete response. How did that call go? What did he say?
He's like, Krystle, we can't ask for anything better. That's what we wanted. We could not ask for anything better. And I couldn't even talk. I was just a mess.
Oh, it's so good.
So grateful. And you want to say so many things and you want to thank them, but just so overwhelmed.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course, of
Yeah.
course. And you had been through all of this at this point, the double mastectomy and the chemotherapies, is that right?
Yes.
So much turmoil
Yeah.
already. And then to get this great news.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. So now,
Yeah.
did you move on to radiation therapy from there?
Yes, I did 15 cycles of radiation in August.
Okay. Okay. Yes. And so your story is so different from mine. So I don't know the protocol. So I'm curious, what was the next things that happened? So then you went into radiation after. Okay.
Yes, radiation after. I'm still doing immunotherapy. I'm going to continue until December.
Okay.
I'm also on a new medication. I'm told that only 6 women in Saskatoon are on it. It's called olaparib.
Okay. And what is the process of that? What is the purpose?
So basically, both our DNAs are getting damaged every day, yours and mine, since we were born. Pollution, food, lack of sleep, basically everything we do damages our DNA, right? But the difference is my body can't repair it because of this cancer gene. So my DNA turns to cancer. So olaparib apparently helps my body repair that DNA.
Wow.
Yes. So apparently it's been used in other countries for a while, but it took a few years for Canada to start. And yeah, apparently I'm the sixth one in Saskatoon who got approved. The cost is quite high. I was told it was over 100,000 for 1 year. It's 4 pills a day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you sustain any side effects from those medications?
Um, I'd say maybe a little bit of body aches. My husband says maybe a little bit of fatigue, but on the other hand, I teach kindergarten and I have 3 kids, so I find going to bed at 9:30 not that weird.
Okay.
Right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Maybe fatigue, maybe not.
Yes, that's fair. Yeah,
No,
maybe just a tired 30-year-old woman. Yeah.
yeah, you know.
Yeah.
So no, very mild. Like I'm very grateful that to be on the mild side.
Extraordinary.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I just love the science that has come out of this. I know there was a time where I kind of was like, well, what are they doing with our money? Blah, blah, blah. And now I look at back at it and I think, man, how ignorant was that of me to say?
I know, but
Because
if you
we
you
are
don't
we are
know,
changing the world. We just
yeah,
didn't know,
you don't know.
right?
Yeah.
Yes. And now the world is changing in such a positive way because of all of the donations that have come. And it's just, yeah, such a blessing. And so you are so light and you have such a brightness to you. What are some of the ways throughout your process that you were able to pull in this resiliency, this strength, this lightness that you have, this type A personality that I can see? Like, what were some of the key things that really brought you back to center in those moments where you were just completely unsure, totally scared? What did you access?
Um, Firstly, I would say my army. I called them my army. I shared my story on social media because I wanted my family and friends to know up-to-date information from me instead of always, asking our parents or my husband. So, when I talk about army, I'm talking about we have 5 parents, my husband and I. We have 6 siblings. We have lots of family and friends that surrounded us with so much love. And we come from 2 small communities, and I feel like there's something to be said there as well.
Mm.
I don't know if I can find the words to explain at what point their support and love made a difference in my mindset. But I remember after that first month, like my soul felt stronger and my mind felt calmer because I knew they were going to help us pull through this. Um, I'll give you some examples. My treatment was on Friday. I'd get home and there were frozen meals on my deck. I don't know who they were from. Cards. Um, my There's a group of girlfriends that I'm super close with, and they had decided that they would do weekly deliveries of things to put in our freezer because they didn't want, Devin to have to stress about feeding the kids if I was unwell or if a sitter was here to help. So we would get cards in the mail, sometimes with money to help. People didn't want us to have to suffer financially because we had to travel to Saskatoon for those treatments. Um, Other family members and friends, would send gift cards for the kids because they wanted them to still be able to like go to the movies or go to the pool, and they wanted to make sure that that was covered to that we were able to give them that. Um, and even like letters and messages and like I typed up every single letter or message I got on Instagram or, text or cards. And I still reread them sometimes when, I need support or I'm feeling down because those words bring me so much strength. And I'm not sure people know how much comfort it brought me, but I feel like that was the number one thing that helped me get through the difficult time. Um, And when I say difficult time, I won't lie. I find the 6 months of chemo was the hardest of the entire journey. That was the hardest time for me. Yeah.
It is.
And there's other things that helped. So when I was diagnosed early on, I decided that I was going to do all I could to give my kids a good year with good days. Does that make sense? Um, I didn't know how the year was going to go. I didn't know what was to come of my sickness, but I was going to be sure that they weren't going to miss out on life for a year because mama was sick. So I feel like that really fueled my outlook during chemo. So I had a psychologist that I saw every 3 weeks. It was over Zoom, but it helped with my mindset. Anything that I was struggling with or anything that I was spiraling about, she would give me tools or books or podcasts to help work on that issue. So that was very helpful. Energy wise, I wanted to make sure on my good days I could be there for them and do things with them. And when they got home from school, that I had the energy to have a games night or a movie night or, be mama. So I wanted to fuel my body the best way I could. So yes, the Saskatoon Cancer Center had a nutritionist that could see me, but I wanted more. It wasn't enough for me. I wanted to know for my type of chemo what I could eat, how much protein I needed for my body weight to make sure I would be like at the optimum energy level. So like I treated my health like my full-time job. I really did. The kids left at 8, they came home at 4, and I did all I could. And sometimes that meant a nap in the afternoon, so I would have energy for them at 4. But on most days, it was like getting on that treadmill, even though it took me like 4 hours to psych myself up to get on there. But after I did my 30 minutes of walking, I felt better. I had more energy. You know?
100%.
Yeah. So I feel like that was also something that helped me get through that difficult time. I read a lot. Oh, did I? I love to read. I usually aim to read 24 books in a year, and I think I read 24 books in 3 months. You know, I needed to keep my brain busy and stimulated because I felt like if I didn't use those muscles, my chemo brain was worse. Did you find that?
Certainly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. I keeping engaged helps so much.
yes. And like I feel like I wasn't getting that from TV. So I needed like logic games, puzzles, apps on my phone. I read a lot, anything to keep the mind working.
Okay. This is great.
Yeah. I would say a
Amazing.
final thing that helped me during that difficult time was also writing. My psychologist
Okay.
had recommended journaling. I don't, journaling, I don't know. I didn't like the idea of like writing this book, no one sees it. I did enjoy writing for my social media and to keep my family and friends in the loop. I found that super helpful. Um, I'm told also that they did appreciate that as well because it let them know how I was feeling or what I was struggling with at that time. But that was also a very helpful outlet for me. Did, I remember reading that you did the same, right? Yes.
Yes, I did the
Yeah.
exact same thing. Yes, and for me it was kind of the same thing. I didn't want to journal about my feelings. I wanted to write them out so that people could see what this felt like. There was
Yeah.
something that was purposeful about it.
Yes. And I wanted people to know that even though I was struggling, I could also see good every day. I was still okay. I was still being positive and I was still trying to find the positive every day. And I was still super grateful for so many things.
Yes. Oh,
Yes. So,
beautiful. That
yeah, I feel like,
mindset piece.
yes. Oh, the mindset's so much work. And I feel like not enough people talk about it.
No, no. And I truly think I just talked to a gal this morning who was just recently diagnosed, and we were speaking about, she said, any advice that you could give, and I said so clearly, truly the biggest advice that I would ever give somebody is that just believe in yourself, that you can do this, that you are a badass and that you're going to get through,
Yeah, you're
and
stronger
like
than you think.
that you're stronger than you think. The deeper belief that you have in your ability to heal, to become
Mhm.
more vibrant than you were before, I just think that the more prepared you become, and the easier the process is. Maybe not easier, but at least the more effective process becomes.
I truly believe that. I agree with you.
Yeah. 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 So, and so like, I mean, that you're really answering my next question of what did you need most during that time? But it
Mm.
sounds like to me that you really needed to continue that belief, to keep your mind engaged, to continue to live really the fullest that you possibly could in that time, Krystle. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. I remember my oncologist telling me, try to keep your life as normal as possible. And at the beginning, I was like, "Pff, okay, thanks, buddy. Like, what do you know? And then I started chemo, and like, it was super helpful to have a social activity once or twice a week because it was something to look forward to meet with family and friends and talk about normal things and, you know, um, still having that social contact and, living life. It it
Yes.
was something I needed, absolutely.
Oh, I'm so glad. That is so good. And it's such an important thing to utilize. That brings me back to COVID times and, all of the survivors who went through that time. I think that was truly what was missing, in my own journey is that like I think that that's a great advice for anyone listening who's recently diagnosed is like find a way to be social, to get in with those people, to live life as normally as possible.
Absolutely.
Because that was some of the hardest parts of my journey was the loneliness, the being by myself,
I can't
secluded,
imagine.
It sucked, But I mean, like we all have our cross to bear when we're going through the process of cancer, and like they're all different, right? But
How do you
I
think
don't
your journey would
certainly.
have been different if you had not had those restrictions? Do you think
Oh,
about that?
I do. Yes, I do. I think that I mean, I know that cancer in itself is lonely, but like I think I think there was a level of loneliness and of feeling kind of forsaken that I really had a difficult time with. Because no one came and cleaned my house. No one came and dropped off food. Like we just everyone was everyone was uncomfortable. We didn't know what to do, right? So it was kind of like a height of COVID. And so like for me, like I think loneliness was the theme of my treatment. And it was exacerbated so much by being in my own thoughts alone with nothing normal to do.
Oh, that hurts my heart for you.
Yeah. Well, oh, thank you. You know, it was tough. And it left a mark, but you know, it just is what it is, right? Like when we go through these things, like we all, I hear stories all the time that are quote unquote worse or quote unquote better. And I think that what it comes down to is that if you are a survivor of cancer, you have fought a war, and that's it.
Mhm.
Like that's just like case in point. There's just like there's a period at the end of that. You fought a war. It's not like I fought a better war or I fought a harder war or I fought an easier war or whatever it was,
Different words. They're different.
they're different.
Yeah.
They're different, right? And so like I often when I talk to moms, I hear moms saying I lived for my kids. But then yet from my perspective, I'm like, how could you have done that with kids, right?
Hmm.
And so like I think that the comparison just doesn't exist. I think that our journeys are difficult, but we rely on the things that we can rely on.
Our journeys are our own realities. It's not, you know,
Right. Yes,
yeah,
100%. And
yeah.
that's why we're creating these podcasts. That's why I'm bringing in survivors, because anybody who's listening can say, "Oh my gosh, I identify with that," or "I don't," or "Oh, now I'm prepared for that next step." Is because, these stories are so powerful because we all did it differently. It
Hmm.
was effective, right?
Hmm.
Wow. Yes. Okay,
No,
so I want to move
absolutely.
on.
Wow.
Yeah. I want to move on a little bit to some tips and tricks for side effects. So anyone listening, some of the side effects that you had and some of the way that you combated them.
So at my first chemo session or treatment, I remember asking this young little nurse about neuropathy because I saw someone there with cold mitts and shoes or booties. And she's like, you know what, Krystle, it's supposed to help with neuropathy. If I'm going to be honest, it's worth a shot. So, okay, so my aunt gifted them to me, my godmother, and I wore them for the first 12 weeks during every treatment. And I never did end up getting neuropathy, you know. Is it because of the mitts and the booties? I'm not sure. I'll never know. But I'm very grateful that I tried because I hear so many stories of women who still suffer from neuropathy years after their battle. So that is something that I find is worth mentioning.
Beautiful.
When I was low on neutrophils, so they monitor your immune system with weekly blood work, and often I had low neutrophils. I wish someone would have told me early on that high protein helps those numbers move up very quickly. I feel like I was told about the Grastafil needles. I'm not sure if that's your experience, Christine, or not, if you had those or not. And
The
I'm
same.
I'm grateful for them and I'm super thankful, but it wasn't mentioned to me that protein itself, like fueling your body with food, could also have a huge impact. So that's something else I feel was very helpful.
Love it.
Yeah.
Good. Perfect.
Exercise, I do feel truly helped me. Um, I know people who are going through this right now, it's probably the last thing they want to hear, but I do feel like once I got up and I walked on those super difficult days, or even, 20 minutes of yoga, I did feel better after. My body felt better. I was less fatigued and I had more energy and my mindset was also better. Is that something you experienced?
Certainly. Yes.
Yeah.
I had a gentle yoga practice and walking. And I found in the beginning, I was given kind of bad advice, to be honest. I
Oh
had
no.
and not bad, but I mean, like it was her experience, but like I should have really been a little bit more clear on who am I.
Hmm.
And she was like, eat the nachos, don't move, watch movies. You don't need to do anything right now. And
Hmm.
so there was a period of time where that's what I did. And
Hmm.
so I became really fatigued,
Was it
really
at the
tired.
beginning of your journey? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Really fatigued, really tired. I definitely started to feel somewhat depressed. I gained weight really quickly,
Hmm.
and so there was a lot to kind of come back from. It was, I think, about month 3 that I was like, this isn't me. What am I doing? And so then I started my gentle yoga practices, my walking, but by then I had lost so much muscle. I had gained so much. I wasn't feeling good in my body. And so that's when I kind of turned things around. I got a naturopath. Well, I already had one, but I accessed her for the health side of things in terms of
Hmm.
food and nutrition and all of those
Hmm.
sorts of things. And then the whole journey changed. It was pretty wild. Like, and you know what? I think it was 2 months. And so then the remaining 3 months of chemotherapy were worlds different than the first two.
Yeah. Wow.
And that's,
I
yeah, and
love
it's
hearing
truly
that because it's like it wasn't just me.
no.
Yeah.
Mm-mm. Yeah. So yeah, so truly, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Anybody who's listening, who's going through this, yes, exercise does not seem like something you want to do, but like
I
5-minute walk, you know what I
yeah.
mean? Start there.
Yeah.
Just something light.
Give yourself
Walking,
grace and build
yes,
if you can,
and build, yes,
and
and
build.
and any sort of practice that you really enjoy. It could be listening to books on Audible or whatever, while you're
Mhm.
walking. That's a great way to, get your pleasure in and your enjoyment while still doing something good for you.
Mhm. I remember on those really rough days, I was like, okay, Krystle, put on a show you love. Because I love to
Mhm.
binge watch TV series and get on the treadmill and just walk. And after 5 minutes, if it's terrible and you're still having a horrible time, give yourself permission to get off. Well, after you're on there for 5 minutes, your heart is pumping and your energy is already going and you end up doing your full 30 minutes or whatever you want, right? But it's just
Yes.
that first step. It's getting there. I know it's hard, but I feel like it was so beneficial.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
it really was. For sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Amazing. So these are some great tips. So I've got neuropathy ice mitts,
Mm-hmm.
low white blood cells, high protein,
Mm-hmm.
fatigue, exercise.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
So after I was done chemo and I had my double mastectomy, I had gained some weight and I did find my energy wasn't where it was like pre-cancer. It was still really good, like don't get me wrong, but it wasn't Krystle a year ago, you know? So
Course.
I actually signed up with Dr. Amy to do her 8-week program. Are you familiar with it?
Yes, I
Okay.
am. Yes, yep, I love
Yeah.
her.
So two pharmacists from Waka actually told me about Dr. Amy when I was first diagnosed. And, at that time I was like 2 weeks in and my mind was elsewhere. And like, I'm like, Dr. Amy, like, what are you talking about? And I didn't even think about her or look her up for like months. And then after I was done chemo or whatever, I came across her on Instagram, I think, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is who they were telling me about." So I actually signed up and I did her program, personal choice, discuss it with my husband. Um, for me, we thought it was worth it, and I do I do find it was super helpful. It helped me drop 14 pounds that I had gained during chemo. Not that the weight is something to be worried about at that point or during this journey, but you're not feeling your best, right? And I do feel like her exercise and her mind work, it did help with the energy to get me back where I wanted to be. So I'm not sure if that's something for side effects, but it is in a
Yes,
way,
I love
right?
it. I love it. Yes, yes. So taking a supportive program, I'll put it there. And
Yes.
I will also tag Dr. Amy. She is
Oh,
amazing. Did you take her fighter program or her freedom program?
freedom.
Freedom program. Okay,
Hmm.
so cool. I work for her fighter program.
Yes, I heard that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love it.
People are going to think we
Amazing.
talked about this before
Yeah,
just to promote, but I swear we
yeah.
didn't.
Well, Dr. Amy. Yeah, yeah. She's so good.
Yeah, no,
Okay, I
that
love
was
it.
very helpful. That was
Okay.
super helpful. And I will say I was doing her program during my radiation.
Mhm.
It just worked out that way with the timing. And I do find my radiation side effects were very much on the mild side, energy wise, fatigue. I and I do think that it is because of what I was fueling my body with and how I was moving my body during that time. Yeah,
Love it. So good.
yeah.
Okay, I've got that in there. So what about I'm trying to think some other side effects. So fatigue is a big one always with cancer patients.
Hmm.
Did you have like things like mouth sores or skin rashes or anything like that?
So for fatigue, I do have 3 kids. So in a way, I did try to limit the amount of time I was napping. I didn't want to be napping just to be napping because it can become a habit and then it's just hard to break, right? So I tried to concentrate on a good night's sleep every night instead of naps during the day. That is something, it was just a personal choice. I did go to bed super early throughout my journey. My children would go to bed at 8 and I was right behind them at like 8:05. And I would sleep like 12 hours. I needed it, but I feel like was that was helpful for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, those are some really great tips. I feel like anybody listening is going to be hugely helped by that. And so I guess I want to guide it back to a couple of final thoughts if there's anything else you want to bring to the table. And then finally, any advice that you would give anyone who was recently diagnosed.
Oh my gosh. Advice. I'll start with the advice if that's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, oh, if I had to go back and tell myself advice when I began this journey, I would tell myself I am so much stronger than I thought I was, but when you're in it, you can't see it, right? You have to live it. So yeah, to take it one day at a time and to try to find the good every day. There is good every day. You just need to find it, and it helps shift and shape your mindset. And I feel like that was something that influenced my journey and helped me stay positive throughout. Because even though you're in chemo, even though you're not feeling well, even though you need surgery, there is still positive every day. And you can be grateful for so many things if you look for it. So that
Oh,
would
it's
be my
hard.
number one thing, I think, for advice.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes. And such a great, great way to start to wrap up, because truly that is truly my belief. Is it I've met so many survivors that when they have that thought, they're so vibrant, and that's how I would describe you, is just so vibrant, and so that is excellent advice.
Thank you. So what breast cancer has taught me, is that the last part? Oh, Christine, so many things. Where to begin? Sometimes I write them out because I don't want to forget. You know
Amen.
what I mean? I
I
like
do.
make lists, and then I don't want to forget all these lessons in the day to day, because it's easy to forget little things, right? And you say you won't, but then, work happens or life gets busy, and then you forget these little pieces. And I'm like, no, don't forget. I go back to what I wrote out a few months before, and I'm like, oh yeah. And then I feel, what's the word? Like refocused again. Does that make sense?
Gosh, yes,
Yeah.
perfect.
Um,
Absolutely. I go back in my
okay.
journal too.
Oh yeah. Okay. So, first thing, um, it has taught me the power of my mind, the difference between a thought, emotion, the power of now, to focus on the now, not the future, because you're causing yourself so much worry and so much stress when you need to be focusing on right now. That was something that was very big for me. Um, I also feel I feel like I explain this to people sometimes and they don't understand, and maybe it's just my way with my words. I feel like before I got sick, I had a great life. I have this beautiful home, I have a job I love, I have the most amazing husband, I have 3 kids, but like I didn't know any different. I was grateful for what I had, but let's say I was like grateful at like 80%. Does that make sense? And now, after being sick, and this might sound so crazy to someone, but I feel like it has brought me feelings of extreme sadness and these terrible, terrible lows that I want no one to ever, ever feel or go through. But on the other hand, it has also brought me so much joy and um, um, gratefulness and mindfulness, and I'm experiencing things in different colors. And instead of being at that 80 now, I get to experience some things at 100. So without that low, I wouldn't have gotten that high. Does that make sense?
It does.
Sorry,
It
I don't know if
does.
I'm expressing myself correctly or not.
You are expressing yourself in a way that is so clear to me
Okay.
and any survivor listening, because yes, life becomes, yes, I love how you said it's more colorful, because
Yeah.
you're right. There is a vibrancy to life that you didn't have before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and even though in those moments where I'm low, I struggle, and I mean I still have them, but
Of course.
those moments where I am at like extreme joy, they're a privilege.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's something else that I try to remember every day. Um, Something else it has taught me. I live a busy life, and I always have. I said that at the beginning, and I still do, but I do find my sickness taught me to slow down, to appreciate the time with my family and friends. It became very clear to me who was important, um, and where I wanted to focus my energy. So I feel like my values and my where I spend my energy has changed, if that makes sense. It made it so clear. Now there's no doubt about it, you know? So I feel like that is something else that it has taught me. Also to let go of the little things. You know, being a type A person, so many little things eat away at me. And like, I remember staying up at night about these silly problems at work, but at the time they weren't silly. But now I can tell myself, okay, Krystle, let it go. Like, it so doesn't matter. You know, like, I'm not wasting my weekend worrying about that. I'm going to enjoy my weekend with my friends and my family. Like, she gone.
Yeah,
Does that make sense? You know?
I do. Yes.
And
Yes.
I kind of think back of the things that kept me up at night, and it's a little bit silly now, but I didn't know any different, right? And now I do. So I feel like that's also a big one for me. Um, I would say the biggest thing that it has taught me is um, to be grateful for all that I have. It really put like lights on all the things that I have, and just how grateful for the friends and the family that I have in my life. The people surrounding me are absolutely incredible, and I am so loved. And I need to remember and focus on that every day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Feel every word so deeply. It's just beautifully said. And you know, for anybody listening who's facing the scariest journey of their life, I think that they can now see, and I can certainly see, how resilient the human experience is. Because
Mhm.
you are sitting here and you've got me excited. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like someone listening might be like, I need cancer. That sounds like I could get like good things in my life. You know what I mean? Like,
Or they're like, that lady's crazy.
oh, I don't think that's what they're thinking.
Hmm. No, I try to see the good in it and all the things it has brought me, and I do feel like it has brought me so many lessons. And I talk about that often, how I don't want to forget them.
Yes.
Is that something that you think of often?
I have said that 1,000 times. I don't want to forget all my
I don't want to
lessons.
forget. So how do you put into your daily practice or weekly practice, or what are things that you do to not forget? Because you're ahead of me in this game. I'm still in my first year here. You are 3 years out.
Yes, I'm 3 years
So,
out.
so what are things that you do to not forget?
Well, I mean, one thing that happened to me is that there was a period of time where we were stressed and there was some strapping in cash flow and whatever else. And I did forget. But then what ends up happening is that I don't think that you can. What happened was there was this little voice in the back of my head that says, like, Christine, remember, you know better than this, and I was like, oh, right. And so then I like journaled a couple of things, or I wrote a couple of things down, and I realized how much my perspective has naturally shifted. And
Mm-hmm.
so I don't think, Krystle, that you will forget. There'll be times, there's ebbs and flows to everybody's life,
Mm-hmm.
but I do not think that you will fully forget, but because I never have. Like, and
Okay.
my practice that I use to try to keep it in place is I have a morning journaling practice where it's very simple. All I do is write a couple of things down of how I'd like my day to go in terms of how could it be great. Then I have a couple of things that I write down that I am grateful for, that are lessons of mine that I want to focus on. And at the end of the day, I write down a couple of ways that my day was great. And it's very simple. I put it on my pillow. When I open my sheets, that's what I see.
Mm-hmm.
And what I love about that practice is that it does draw in those lessons and remind me. And yet it's
Mm-hmm.
so simple. And it's a
Mm-hmm.
great way to start your day as well. But when I forget, they come back. I really do not think that you will forget, because when you face the Grim Reaper, life just is different now. You are different now. And people always say, I don't want to change. well, you are going to change,
Mm-hmm.
but for the better.
Mm-hmm.
So, and so embrace that, right? You are going to change. There are things that are that are physical struggles for a period of time, but that will change.
Mm-hmm.
And, there are things that you will have a difficult time with for a period of time mentally, but that will subside. But
Mm-hmm.
what will last is who you have become as a result.
Mm-hmm.
And that won't change. Not for me anyway, not so far.
And in one of my last social media shares, because, they have become less frequent regarding my cancer journey, because, I'm back at work and I'm just so grateful to be back at my old life. And, it's like my external world seems like I've gone back, right? I'm back to doing what I love. I'm spending time with my family. I'm back in my social circle with my friends, but my internal world is so different,
Yes.
and it's sometimes I find that a struggle, because people just assume because you're back to to normal external activities, it's like, oh, she's good, she's back at it, you know what I mean? But I guess to those people who are close to me and who take the time to ask, they do know that my internal world has definitely changed.
Yes.
I'm not the same, neither are you, right?
No, and you won't be. And that's okay. That's a
Yeah.
good thing.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm okay with that.
I love it. I feel like we could talk for another hour, but at least I should stop recording. So I'm going to do that. But I'm so unbelievably grateful to you, Krystle. I honestly think that what you have given the listeners, me, yourself, is this beautiful roadmap to follow through. And truly what it is it's a shining example of what it can be. I really believe that. I think that you are a shining example of what it can be. And so I think that people listening will be inspired. So thank you for sharing your story.
I love that. That's so sweet. Thank you.
You're very welcome. It is my pleasure. Okay, well, I'm gonna stop here, and and then we can keep chatting.
Thank you so much for listening. If you found expansion with this last episode, then that means that others will too. And the best way to get the word out about the podcast is by leaving a review. I would be so grateful if you could leave me a review and let me know how you felt about the podcast. Included in the show notes will be everything that we talked about today, including all of my transformative programs. Change is just on the horizon, my friend.